Really, they didn't see you. They saw you as background noise, a shadow in a noisy room, someone easy to ignore and forget, even though you were there, breathing, trying, and showing up. They talked over you when you spoke. They rejected you despite your best efforts. You were there, but it didn't seem to matter. Worst of all, it wasn't just them. You eventually began doing it to yourself. Before anyone else could stop you, began to soften your voice. Before anyone else could let you down, you began to decrease your expectations. You began to think that perhaps you were destined to remain unseen. It starts with calm acceptance, acceptance of less, acceptance of being ignored, and acceptance of becoming small in a world that only values presence, not with failure or weakness. However, there was a part of you that never agreed. No matter how many times you were disregarded or ignored, there was always that voice, soft but insistent, telling you this isn't who you are. That voice, together with the unease and inexplicable restlessness, marked the start of your metamorphosis. Because that fire is not felt by unseen beings. People who are invisible don't doubt their position. People who are invisible don't doubt a voice in their breast telling them you were meant for more. You did. And that's where everything fixed. You see, you learn things by being unseen that you could never learn from attention. It teaches you how to observe, read people, and comprehend tension, energy, and quiet. You were engaged studying while others were preoccupied with being seen. You raised awareness while they sought approval. You learned to stand on your own 2 feet while they relied on applause. And you began to become dangerous gradually, covertly, and without anyone noticing. Because nothing is more potent than someone who was disregarded yet made the most of the opportunity to develop. It appears to be minor adjustments at first. You begin to think in a different way. You no longer respond in the same manner. You start to doubt what you're used to believe. You give up trying to win people over. The first shift is that, because your unseen self was constantly attempting to fit in, be loved, and be accepted. However, the unstoppable version doesn't ask to be stopped. It constructs its own table. You start to see that being disregarded wasn't a sign of weakness. It served as your training ground. You learned independence from all those times when you felt alone. They made you rely on yourself all those times you were doubted. Your thinking was strengthened by all that quiet. Then comes the time when you decide you've had enough of waiting to be acknowledged, shrinking to fit in with others, and acting as though you don't feel what you do. And it's not loud or dramatic, but it's unquestionable. That choice is where invisibility perishes. Everything changes after that. You walk differently because you changed, not because the world did. You no longer have drooping shoulders. Contact is no longer avoided by your eyes. The way your voice trembles is different. Something new, stable, and controlled has emerged within you. You don't make much noise, since presence isn't a myth. You now possess it. People begin to notice. They are initially unable to describe it. They simply sense the change in your energy, the serene intensity, the tranquil assurance that was previously absent. They begin to pay attention because something about you doesn't fit who you used to be, not because you beg them to. You are impressive because you are no longer attempting to impress anyone. Your reactions are more significant because you don't respond to everything. Your words are heavier since you don't talk all the time. Attention seems to start pursuing you even when you don't pursue it. That's the change from imperceptible to indisputable. Don't misunderstand though, this has nothing to do with retaliation. It's not about disproving people. That's a tiny way of thinking. This is about aligning yourself with your own strength to the point that it doesn't matter what other people think, because this is the reality. You become impossible to ignore when you no longer require attention. You're not performing anymore. You're not acting like this anymore. You no longer have to change who you are to fit into places that weren't made for you. You are just being absolutely and unabashedly yourself, and everything is disrupted by that kind of presence. People are challenged by it. They recall the version of you that was simple to ignore, which makes them uneasy. They don't recognize you anymore. Excellent. They shouldn't, since that version of you had to vanish. In order for this version to emerge, it had to be buried beneath growth, suffering, and experience. The version that is aware of quiet but does not define it. The version that is aware of rejection yet remains unaffected by it. The version that emerged stronger, more resilient, and sharper after passing through invisibility. You no longer ask, "Do I belong here?" when you go into a room because you already know. You no longer feel the need to defend yourself when someone questions you. Your behavior speaks for itself. You no longer crumble under the strain of existence. Because pressure shaped you, you absorb it. You weren't broken by it. This is the last shift. Instead of viewing yourself as someone who is disregarded, you begin to see yourself as someone who is getting ready for this version of yourself. The one who doesn't hesitate or wait. The one who doesn't doubt their value every 5 minutes. The one who moves with purpose, speaks clearly, and thinks clearly. That's unstoppable, controlled power that doesn't require approval, validation, or fading. It's not loud success or ostentatious assurance. Therefore, it's good if you're still in that stage where you feel invisible, ignored, and like no one is paying attention to what you're doing. Don't be passive, but stay there a bit longer. Make use of it, include it, develop in it, because invisibility is the ideal setting for transformation when handled properly. You won't only be noticed when you leave it. Norse. Clears throat. People will remember you. Pain enters your life without your consent. It doesn't lurk you. He untentered your life like and snap. It just shows up, and all of a sudden, everything your days, your thoughts feels heavier. Initially, you attempt to get away from it. You divert your attention. It's only temporary, you remind yourself. You act as though it has no effect on you. Whether you embrace it or not, pain has a purpose, which is why it persists. The majority of individuals view pain as an enemy that should be avoided and silenced. They use diversions to numb it. They hide it behind momentary solace. They avoid it as if it were a disgrace. Since of this, it has authority over them, since you will constantly be under the influence of what you refuse to confront. However, there is an alternative approach that most people steer clear of due to its discomfort. You turn around and confront it with awareness rather than fear or resistance. You take a seat with it, you completely experience the rage, disappointment, rejection, and emptiness that renders everything seem pointless. You cease referring to it as weakness and begin to view it for what it truly is, raw energy. Pain is nothing more than unidentified, undirected energy that is just waiting to be utilized. Consider it. Did you not have an internal reaction each time you were harmed? A fire, a tension, a surge? That isn't devastation. Potential exists there. This is where most people fall short, though. They allowed that energy to blow up in the wrong direction. They transform it into rage directed at other people. They transform it into self-doubt. They transform it into surrender. The same suffering that might have strengthened them suddenly shatters them. Pain was abused, not because it is a potent emotion. Pain is comparable to fire. It burns everything if left unchecked. It forges steel, so control it. Because pain will always provide you with two options. The true question is, what am I going to do with it? Rather than, why am I in pain? Either you allow it to define you, or you allow it to improve you. A middle ground does not exist. When you experience rejection, you may start to feel inadequate or develop into someone who doesn't require approval. You can either become lonely or gain strength from being by yourself. You have two options when life hits you. Either you give up or you adjust. And the source of power is adaptation. Because you take charge each time you decide to prioritize progress above reactivity. You begin to take control of your emotions rather than becoming a victim of them. Pain does not go away as a result. It does not imply that you are suddenly emotionless. No, you sense it more profoundly. You are no longer under its influence, though. It gives just you imminent. Use your anger as motivation for discipline. Turn that annoyance into focus. Transform that melancholy into self-awareness, because guidance is concealed within every unpleasant emotion. Anger is a sign that something is important. Sadness is a sign that something is lacking. Fear alerts you to the need to confront something. However, the majority of individuals only react and never pay attention. Reaction also keeps you trapped. Response, control, and deciding what to do with that energy are the sources of power. That's the transition from suffering to strength. Furthermore, it takes time for it to happen. It is constructed in tiny moments. When you want to give up yet persevere. When you want to cry but maintain your composure. When your mind attacks you yet you don't trust all it says. That's power. Not being flawless or dispassionate, but maintaining control even when you're hurled it seems to be inevitable, and eventually something amazing takes place. Things that formerly caused you pain begin to make you stronger. Rejection becomes less intimate and more like a diversion. Failure begins to feel like feedback rather than the end. Pain begins to feel more like preparation than punishment. Patterns start to emerge. You start to comprehend who you are. You start to see that what you went through was worthwhile. You learn something from every scar. You were sculpted by every setback. Every dark moment compelled you to develop. All of a sudden, you no longer fear pain because you understand its effects. You are aware of what it creates. You are aware of what it shows. You know that strength doesn't come from comfort. Struggle does. Pressure does. Pain does. Because of this, those who have had it easy are not the strongest. They are the ones who discovered how to take advantage of what caused them harm. The fire was fire avoided by that eve of him. They should have them. They emerge sharper, stronger, and unbreakable rather than annihilated. Now, you don't panic when you experience discomfort. You don't spread, asking, what is this here to teach me, instead of why me transforms everything. Because pain is now your teacher, your trainer, and your fuel rather than your enemy. Feel it then. Don't repress it. Don't overlook it. Don't act like it doesn't exist. Because you will no longer be governed by suffering once you stop fleeing from it. And you become powerful the moment you figure out how to manage it. Real, grounded, unwavering power, not phony strength or fleeting inspiration. The kind that perseveres through difficult times. The kind that develops when things become difficult. Let it hurt then. Allow it to burn. Allow it to test your limits. Don't let it break you though. Make use of it. Form it. Make use of it. Make use of it. Form it. Make it work in your favor rather than against you. Because being the feeding the else fire, it was there to show you a side of yourself that you would never have found in any other manner. Something has remained within of you, not when they disregarded you, not when you didn't succeed, not even when you wanted to give up. Yes, it became quieter, perhaps concealed by uncertainty, anxiety, and weariness, but never truly gone. That sensation you occasionally experience, that inexplicable restless energy, that voice that appears while all else is quiet. That's all. That's not theatrical, not loud, but genuine. You wouldn't believe how long it has been there. You had it before the world began telling you who you should be, before the opinions and before the pressure. An innate passion, an inquisitiveness, a desire to move, to create, to become something. However, life has a tendency of hiding things one layer at a time. Rejection, comparison, criticism, and failure. They are all like dusts falling of flame. Eventually, you begin to think that the fire is extinguished. You perceive others as possessing something that you do not. More self-assurance, skill, and good fortune. However, that is untrue. You didn't receive anything that they did. They simply wouldn't allow theirs to perish. Because most people steer clear of this truth. The fire doesn't go out. It is disregarded. Anything ignored also fades. It's not feeble. Rather, it's malnourished. Action is what feeds your fire. Not ideas or aspirations. Action, not just one day. It is fueled by even the smallest step. It gets stronger each time you push yourself when you don't feel like it. It gets worse each time you confront an uncomfortable situation rather than avoiding it. It increases each time you choose discipline over justifications. However, the reverse is also true. It dims each time you hesitate. It gets weaker each time. It gets smaller each time you listen to uncertainty rather than taking action. You eventually lose faith in it. You doubt it. You begin to wonder, what if I don't have what it takes? Yet that is untrue. That's fear attempting to shield you from effort. Because most people avoid doing what the fire requires. Regularity. It's not about a single significant event. Not about impulsive inspiration. It's not about awaiting to feel prepared. It's about consistently coming up, even when you're feeling nothing. Particularly that, because emotion is not the foundation of true fire. It is based on choices. Clear as throat, a choice to proceed despite difficulty, a choice to continue when things are moving slowly, a choice to have faith in oneself in the face of uncertainty. And most people fall off at that point. They hold out for the spark. They wait to be motivated. They wait for the ideal opportunity. However, waiting has no effect on the flames. It reacts to motion. It is something you make, not something you discover. And everything changes once you realize it. You no longer seek inspiration from the outer world. You give up comparing your path to other people's. You no longer anticipate that things will be simple, because you now understand that the fire increases in pressure, resistance, and challenge. It gets stronger when giving up seems like the simplest. It changes there, and gradually something shifts. You start to feel it once more. It burns steadily rather than abruptly. A calm assurance, a concentrated energy, a previously absent sense of orientation. You begin to have faith in your actions. You quit questioning every action. You start to comprehend who you are, your tendencies, your boundaries, and your possibilities. And that comprehension is fuel, because you are no longer merely moving at random. Every action carries some weight. Every choice has a reason. You are no longer pursuing anything. You are constructing it from the inside out. And it's powerful because of it, due to a decline in outside motivation. People become disinterested. Circumstances shift. Energy is not constant. However, internal fire persists as long as it is protected, as long as you show it respect. Additionally, safeguarding it requires making decisions that others won't comprehend. It entails refusing to be distracted. It entails leaving things that deplete you. It entails maintaining concentration in the face of external distractions. It's not simple. It's uncomfortable. However, it's essential. Because the purpose of the fire is not to provide you with comfort. It is intended to enable you, able to withstand pressure, able to maintain self-control, able to develop into someone who doesn't give up when things get tough. And you tank when you not in a loud, conspicuous manner, but in an unquestionable, grounded manner. You don't get scared easily. You don't give up easily. You don't become lost in turmoil because you have knowledge that others do not. You are aware of your inner self. You sensed it. You've constructed it. You've made it stronger. And that cannot be taken away by anyone. Not beliefs, not failures, not setbacks, because your fire is independent of the situation. It is up to you. Your decisions, your self-control, your attitude. And that's the last insight. You never felt empty. You never lacked anything. You were simply cut off from anything that required your focus, something that required your work, something that required your work, something that required you to put your doubts aside and take action. Therefore, it's okay if you feel lost, trapped, or as like you've lost your motivation. It is therefore still present, waiting, north for the ideal, but a choice to take action, a choice to relocate, a choice to have faith that even a tiny advancement will be sufficient to restore it. You won't require motivation once it returns and that fire begins to grow once again. You won't require affirmation. You'll have something stronger, so you won't need anyone to push you. an unstoppable power within you. You aren't living as yourself for a long time. You are a reflection of yourself for a long time. You are a reflection of yourself. A version molded by opinions, expectations, and unconscious pressure you were carrying. You changed your tone to fit in. To avoid being condemned, you censored your ideas. To fit into environments that never really seemed like your own, you played various parts for different individuals. And gradually, something began to slide. Not your identity, not your accomplishments, nor your skills. Because each time you disregarded your gut, each time you prioritized approval over truthfulness, and each time you remained silent when you had something to say, you further distanced yourself from your true self. The frightening thing is that it didn't happen all at once. It took place in silence, so gently that you felt strange when you woke up one day, like you were there, yet unreal, as if you were in motion but unconnected, as if you were leading a life that wasn't entirely your own. When you lose control over who you are, you experience that emotion and disconnection. Because identity is more than simply your name. It's not your responsibility. It has nothing to do with what people call you. When no one is around, it's what you stand for. It's the way you think in the absence of influence. When there's no pressure, it's what you decide. And you stopped making choices at some point. You began to respond, responding to demands, responding to techniques, responding to the demand for acceptance. You become flexible but not genuine. Additionally, there is a distinction. Being adaptable aids in your survival. You feel alive when you are authentic. Everything seems hollow without it, even achievement, even acknowledgement. You know, deep down, they're not really seeing you. It's a variation, a show, and you are never satisfied with that performance, no matter how convincing it seems, because there's something that ain't quantitated for a silent opposition. You can't ignore this agony indefinitely. Silence is when it manifests. When you're by yourself with your thoughts, there are times when you ask yourself questions for which you have no answers. Really, who am I? Not the person they want you to be. Not the person you've been acting like. But without the disguise, who are you? It's an awkward question, because responding to it necessitates doing something that most people dread: true sincerity. The kind that doesn't shield your pride, the kind that doesn't sugarcoat the truth, the kind that compels you to reveal your hiding place. You begin to see things clearly. When you avoided confrontation, you stayed little. The times you consented merely to be accepted, the moments when you stopped speaking, and it hurts for a second, since you understand that you haven't lost who you are. You gave up on yourself, not on purpose, not because I'm weak, but in order to survive. You believe that blending in would keep you safe. You believed that security would come from being loved. You believed that the best course of action was to avoid rejection. But there was a price for safety. You were the cost of that. The transformation is about to begin. Not very loud, not very dramatic, but strong. You made the decision to reclaim yourself. Not the version that other people have shaped. The actual one. The person with opinions. The one with standards. The person who disagrees with everything in order to maintain harmony. And it begins modestly. When you would have remained silent, you speak. When you would have said yes, you say no. Even if it's uncomfortable, you say what you really think. It feels weird at first, unknown. Nearly incorrect, because you're deviating from long-standing habits. However, that soreness is a sign of progress. You're leaving behind a version that wasn't quite your own. And something starts to rebuild as you continue. Have faith, not in other people, within oneself. Because you reinforce that bond each time you behave in a way that is consistent with your true self. You begin to value your own voice. You begin to value your own ideas. You begin to see that the validity of your identity is independent of approbation, and everything is altered by that. You give up looking for approval, since you no longer doubt your identity. You quit trying to explain yourself too much, because you don't feel the need to defend your existence. You cease being accommodating to everyone, since you are aware that not everyone is meant to share your views. And it's all right, because being accepted by everyone isn't what identity is all about. It's about being honest with yourself, even if you have to pay for it, even if it causes some individuals to leave, even if it means spending some time by yourself. Because being surrounded by people who aren't you is still weaker than being by yourself. This is where the power comes in. Clarity increases when you recapture more of your identity. Making decisions gets simpler, so you're not speculating on what feels correct. Boundaries get stronger, because you don't hesitate to defend your own space. Your path becomes more apparent. Since you are no longer following noise, you are adhering to the truth, your veracity. Nobody can explain that to you. Not your history, not your errors, not the views of others, since identity is malleable. Over time, it is constructed, improved, and fortified by means of experience, by being conscious. Via the bravery to repeatedly pick oneself, you become immovable in a different way if you completely embrace that. Not hostile, not protective, just certain of your identity, certain of your values. You know exactly what you're worth and wherefore felt. And what people notice is that assurance. Not because you're attempting to make a statement. However, you're no longer attempting to fit in. There is no longer any misunderstanding around you. Without hesitation. Don't pretend, just being clear. Furthermore, clarity has great power because it demands respect without asking for it. Where necessary, it establishes distance. The appropriate people are drawn to it. The incorrect ones are filtered out without using any force at all. That's what occurs when you take back your identity. You begin to stand as yourself and cease looking for yourself. Completely, without apology, without requiring authorization. Therefore, it's okay if you feel disoriented, disengaged, or like you've been playing a character for too long. That awareness is the first step, because unless you recognize something is missing, you can't get it back. You are aware now. You can see it now. Are you prepared to cease performing? That's the only question left, and at last, become the person you were destined to be. Fear has always been misinterpreted. People believe it's something to stay away from, something to get rid of, something that vanishes if you gain sufficient strength. However, fear does not go away. It changes. It keeps an eye on you. It examines your habits. It picks up on your hesitations, doubts, and retreats, and it reappears each time you take a step in the direction of something greater. To test you, not to stop you. Before the test even starts, the majority of individuals fail it. They flee because they are afraid. They overthink things and experience uncertainty. They shrink as a result of pressure. After that, they narrate a tale to themselves. I'm not prepared. I'm not interested in this. Later, perhaps. However, that is untrue. That's defense, because danger is only one aspect of terror. It has to do with exposure, your boundaries, exposing your boundaries. Exposure of what occurs when you truly attempt to conceal and are unable to do so. Therefore, people construct cozy cages rather of confronting it, safe practices, situations that are predictable, reduced dangers. Additionally, it appears stable from the outside. On the inside, though, it's quiet annoyance, because they know in their hearts that they are capable of more. However, they have opted for solace rather than conflict. You didn't. Or at least a part of you won't. Fear, therefore, affects you more severely. It feels louder because of this, due to the fact that you are nearer the edge, closer to transformation, nearer to expansion. You're getting closer to being a different person, and that doesn't sit well with terror, because ambiguity is necessary for growth. Furthermore, control is eliminated by uncertainty. Thus, fear attempts to persuade you to retreat. It murmurs, what happens if you don't succeed? What has happened? What if you're insufficient? You remain precisely where you are if you pay attention. This is the change that most individuals never make, though. Fear does not indicate that you should stop. It indicates that you are headed in the correct direction. Because while you're playing little, fear doesn't manifest. When you are about to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, it manifests. When you're about to push yourself beyond your comfort zone, it manifests. Consider it when you've mastered great. Staying in familiar habits doesn't make you feel afraid. When you venture into the unknown, you experience terror. And the unknown, that's where everything is. Possibility, expansion, change. Therefore, how to eradicate fear is not the actual question. It's how to use it. Fear is energy, after all, similar to pain. It paralyzes you when it's out of control. It sharpens you and is directed when your heartbeat begins to bound, when that tension is felt by your body. That is not a sign of weakness. That's getting ready. Your body is awakening. You're becoming more conscious. Your attention is becoming more focused. However, you freeze if you misunderstand it. You move if you comprehend it. That's the distinction. Those who remain trapped stop out of terror. Those who grow experience fear and take action, not because they have no fear. However, they have trained themselves to move in any case. And that training is developed one choice at a time. When you speak for the first time, your voice starts to tremble. When your mind tells you not to, you take a chance for the first time. It's the first time you move ahead when your gut tells you to hold back. It's not comfy, it's disorganized, it doesn't feel strong. However, it is, because fear loses control each time you act in spite of it, by disproving it, not by demolishing it. You demonstrate to yourself that your boundaries are not defined by fear. It merely puts them to the test, and something shifts with time. Fear loses power, yet does not go away. Your actions are no longer under its control. It no longer controls your decisions. It becomes into background noise, still present, still there, but no longer in command. And that's where you start to change, because you are no longer avoiding fear. You're walking alongside it. Despite feeling it, you continue to move. Despite hearing it, you refuse to comply. You confront it without giving up. And that produces something potent: existence, not overbearing assurance, calm composure, not forced bravery, the kind of control that causes individuals to hesitate because they perceive it, that you're not responding, that you're not in a panic, that you're not attempting to avoid pressure. It is where you are standing at ease. And since most individuals live their entire lives attempting to avoid suffering, that is uncommon. However, you figured out how to live within it, and it is what causes the dynamic to change. Because fear is no longer controlling you. You are in charge of how you react to it, and that alters people's perceptions of you. Unpredictability produces tension, not because you're attempting to be threatening. Furthermore, nothing is more unpredictable than someone who doesn't respond as anticipated. You take action when others anticipate hesitancy. You remain composed when they anticipate terror. You refuse to back down when they expect you to. That is the source of the fear element. Not out of hostility, not by dominance, but from authority, from calmness, from the capacity to maintain composure while others falter, and that has an impact on more than simply how other people perceive you. It changes your self-perception, because you stop questioning your own abilities once you see that you can overcome fear and show yourself that it doesn't stop you. You no longer doubt every action. You begin to believe in what you do. And true confidence stems from trust, not from achievement, evidence, not validation, proof that you are capable of handling pressure, proof that you are able to overcome uncertainty, proof that you are able to overcome uncertainty, proof that you are able to overcome uncertainty, proof that you can come top. It's mastery over fear, not its absence. So don't flee the next time dread strikes. Don't turn it off. Don't act like it doesn't exist. Pay attention. Recognize the point it is making, because there is something significant hidden underneath every fear. Something important, something that could transform you. And that's okay if it frightens you. It is therefore not little. It is hence uncomfortable. It is therefore wild. So face your doubts head-on with the strength of strength. Well, ain't it? Because the road will always involve fear. However, control is a decision, and when you decide to take action in spite of your fear, you become someone that other people cannot predict, control, or ignore. Your thoughts are constantly conversing, even right now, a steady flow of ideas. Some are loud while others are quiet. Some pull you back while others push you forward. You don't even question it most of the time. You simply pay attention. You act as though every notion were real. Every doubt is a cautionary tale. Every worry is taken for granted. That's where the issue starts. Because you are not meant to be powerful by your thoughts. It's made to protect you. Furthermore, development is not necessary for safety. Control is necessary. Predictability, recognizable trends, thus, stories are produced by your mind. Narratives that make sense but restrict you. Avoid taking that chance. You may not succeed. What are people going to think? You not yet prepared. And the more you pay attention, the more those ideas come to pass. You never question them, not because they are true. People become locked in this way. They've given authority to a voice that wasn't supposed to be in charge, not because they're incompetent. One realization is the first step toward mastering your thoughts. Your thoughts are not who you are. It's you who is watching them. That distinction, everything is altered by it. Because you can challenge a thought if you can't scare it yourself. You can choose whether or not to believe it if you are able to question it. You regain control if you are able to make a decision. However, this is not simple because you have a quick intellect. Automatic. It responds before you even understand what's going on. As soon as a scenario arises, a concept comes to mind. Evaluation, presumption, fear. Additionally, you react without thinking if you're unaware. Without is the state by default. However, conquering the mind entails disrupting that pattern. It entails slowing down. Not the world, but how you react to it. You halt when anything occurs. For a brief moment only. Enough time to notice. What am I thinking at the moment? Not what's taking place. Not the actions of others. However, what's happening within you? Because everything begins there. Your emotions are shaped by your thinking. Your behavior is influenced by your feelings. You are a solid shackup. Therefore, everything that comes after will be uncontrollable if your ideas are uncontrollable. The truth is as follows. Your thoughts will deceive you. Consistently, not on purpose. It will make issues worse. It will forecast the worst-case situations. It will make you feel as though your future is defined by your previous mistakes. You restrict yourself before you even try if you believe it. Thus, you must contest it logically, not emotionally. Based on what? You're not good enough. You'll fail. Is that certain or just clears throat possible? This is too hard. Or is this just unfamiliar? These inquiries make room. The distance between you and the idea. You regain control in that area. Since you're not responding anymore, you're making a decision. And control is found in decision. However, managing your mind involves more than just putting an end to unpleasant thoughts. It's about guiding them. Because your mind needs concentration. It will find one on its own if you don't give it one. Additionally, clears throat. That emphasis is typically on issues. What's the issue? What's absent? What might go wrong? Thus, you must train it, similar to how you would train your physique, by using repetition, by being consistent, by self-control. You decide what to concentrate on, not thinking optimistically. Intentional thought, not thinking optimistically. Intentional thought, not you concentrate on what you can control rather than what you cannot. Your behavior, your work, your answer. You take lessons rather than repeating mistakes. You get ready rather than obsessing on your worry. Challenges are still present, but they are perceived differently as a result of that transformation. So you are no longer overburdened. You have an engagement. There's a distinction. Feeling helpless leads to engagement, or accepting leads to engagement. And accountability is the foundation of strength, not default, not guilt, but possession. This is how I think. These are my ideas. This is my answer. Additionally, once you assume responsibility, you are no longer subject to outside influences because you have power over what occurs inside, regardless of what occurs outside. That does not imply that you will not experience feelings. You will. Rage, annoyance, doubt. However, you no longer lose your fights. You comprehend them. You let them go without allowing them to control how you behave. Control is that, not repression, not a denial. Clears throat, but consciousness. Additionally, awareness increases with practice. You gain a better understanding of your thought patterns as you become more aware of them. The more you know about your triggers, the more you know about yourself. And strength is self-awareness, because nothing surprises you anymore. When your mind tries to bring you back, you can tell. You can tell when fear is masquerading as reason. You can tell when uncertainty is attempting to impede your progress. And you take a step back rather than tumbling into it. You make a reset. You make another decision. That's how it works, repeatedly. Not flawless, not right away, but steady. And something shifts with time. Your thoughts become more subdued, clear, yet not silent. Not you quit second-guessing every choice. You cease responding to every feeling. You are no longer drawn in all directions. As you are currently in the lead, you are followed by your ideas, not the other way around. And that's where true strength emerges, not in your words, not in what you display, but in the way you think. Because everything else becomes simpler when your head is in control. Making decisions becomes more acute. Behavior becomes more deliberate. Emotions become easier to contact. You're not dispersed anymore, you're in sync. Additionally, alignment is very potent because your direction, actions, and ideas are now coordinating. No confrontation, without hesitation, just forward motion. Therefore, negativity does not take control when it manifests. You don't let doubt stop you. You don't break under strain, because your vulnerability is no longer your thoughts. You can use it as a weapon, sharpened by consciousness, controlled by choice, and when you get there, you discover something that most people never do. Outside was never the biggest challenge. It was inside all the time. You're no longer battling it. You're becoming better at it.